I'm kind of moving slowly today, but taking my time. Trying not to stress. I've already put some, this morning I put some penetrating epoxy on the bowsprit finally. And I may or may not go underneath here to do more cutting of stuff that's got to be cut. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. It is going to be hotter tomorrow, but that's okay. It'll be cooler down there. Anyway, possibly the last thing I'm going to do today is reestablish my threaded rod between here and here. I don't want to go through. I didn't want to try to finagle it in there before I put this piece in. It just would have made it ridiculous. So my plan is on the outside, the rod will have a nut and washer on it as normal. But on the inside, I'm going to use a hanger bolt, which is a cool thing. It's a wood thread on one end and a machine thread that matches the threaded rod, I hope, on the other end, yeah. And to join the two together, I'm going to use an ordinary coupler. I know none of this stuff is stainless, it's not bronze, but this time around it's not going to get so wet, is it? Is it? No, not if I have anything to do with it. So I'm going to pilot this. Ooh, it's just, I don't have to go all the way in. I'm going to mount this, then take a measurement, make sure I have just enough room to push it back enough to bring it to the coupler. I should have plenty of leeway with all the thread and whatnot. How much leeway do I have? Oh, it's too long to shove in. Yeah, it's got to go. I feel like yeah, I can make that work. And then next, I'm going to put two of these on here so I can tighten one against the other. That'll give me something to put the wrench on, or maybe even a socket to drive this in. Crack this off of here. And then call it 12, well, 13 and a half. Now, I have to bend it a little bit, I think. Using a nylock nut, an aircraft nut. Mar the thread out here, so I don't need it. Oh, can I even get a wrench on that? Yeah, I can, just barely. Oof. I'm gonna bend it slightly. That's pretty darn good. And there you have it. I can't do this one yet until I rebuild that bottom corner. What next? We could check on the epoxy. Just taking a moment to think about something that I've been thinking about. To actually look at it. I think I mentioned this before, that there's a swoop. And it's not just the side I redid, it's here too. ultimately the planks all have to lay down where they're fastened. They have to be touching this. They can't be floating or there will be movement. The question is, you can see a pretty big gap there once it goes to there because the whole thing swoops. The question is, will I be able to bend that 1.25 inches sufficiently without cracking it? Well, we're gonna find out, I guess. Nah, I gotta let it sit at least overnight, which is a shame because I want to do as many coats as I can this week. Could probably do 2 a day. Pretty darn rough, that stick. I think I got a lot in there. See where that, wish I had a pointer, where that little bit of blowout is. I've prepared to remount the rollers, and I discovered, let me get the camera close enough, the middle hole where the bolt goes all the way through, that's a hunk of bronze in there. It might be threaded. It looks like they just cut it flush on either end and called that a plug. So I had to offset all my new holes, and I tried to be very careful, but I got a little blowout, but that's okay. The bedding will seal that up. I am gonna bed them. But anyway, I test fitted the whole thing, and I think it's gonna be groovy. These will get filled with caulk temporarily, just before I put a nice coat of white paint on here. But eventually there will be a pulpit of some kind. I'm gonna have to try a few different designs, something simple. I might use the teak that was part of that cover for the cockpit, cut that up and use bits of that just to make something to walk out there safely on. Once the outer stays in place, I'll have a handhold there. There will be chain from the whales to the end of the bowsprit, and probably rope from these possibly to the end of the bowsprit or some intermediate point, and eventually there will be a net strung between those, probably, maybe, we don't know yet. Let's get in the water. I can't help thinking about this stuff, but I really shouldn't waste time thinking about that right now. I'm definitely gonna investigate this by temporarily screwing just a random piece on. I'm gonna mill my stock to the right thickness and width, which will be about 3 inches for most of them. I also have to plot out that whole pattern that I'm gonna do before I start cutting that wood up, so I make sure I do the right widths and such. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna temporarily try to bang one down, like from back there all the way to the bulkhead, or whatever one lands outside the cockpit, just to see what's going to happen there. I may have to, I don't know, I may have to build these up or something. I sure hope not. You know, looking at this again, I realize that there isn't really going to be any continuous piece that goes all the way from there to there uninterrupted. So I could be able to work that to my advantage. Either that, or it'll make everything more difficult. I think what I'm going to definitely do is when I mill the stock, I'm going to make it just a little bit thicker than 1.25 inches, just a little bit, so I have some leeway to contour just in case they wind up sort of staggered relative to each other in any way. So ends another day, Tuesday. Made a lot more progress. I finally got the transmission coupler free so I could get the dripless seal out. I'm going to replace that with a stuffing box, a more traditional stuffing box, because I don't trust it. If a stuffing box leaks, you can actually deal with it in the water. If a dripless shaft leaks, you're probably going to sink unless you can get towed somewhere and hauled out immediately. So I hear. And yeah, I don't know how old it is. Probably as old as the engine. I've never seen it leak. Made a lot more progress with repairing the tub. I got the rest of that plywood off the forward edge underneath that bulkhead there. Found some more rot on the port side. Not a surprise at all. It can and will be dealt with. Still not ready to lay planks on the deck. Maybe next week. I'm gonna go home day after tomorrow, I think, in the morning, or tomorrow night. I got something in my eye. I don't know why. It's not like I was cutting overhead all day. Curled up back there. Not that I'm complaining. Yeah, I'm gonna go home and cut up some of that black locust. At least, I don't know, render that chunk of wood into what's most usable. Cut out all the inclusions, all the sapwood, the bark, and maybe cut a few pieces to the dimensions I'm going to use so that I can bring them back to the boat and start figuring things out, the pattern and whatnot. I may make a full-size template of half of that whole aft deck so that I can pull measurements off to figure out if all the planks should be the same width, what width they should be. It can't be like the old pattern exactly because it's going to be laid straight. I also have to figure out what's going to go on with those drains. I was looking at that today, and I have some ideas about how to make that work without too much trouble. And yeah, tomorrow's another day of work. Okay. Whoa. Easy now. Woo, boy. Yeah, I'm already drifting a little bit. But it's going down almost to 3 inches. Kind of amazing. I've set the blade a little shallower. It could go either way. It might track more sure with the blade in there deeper. This is not a great way to do this. Alright, I gotta take my chances without these. They're just getting fogged up. Made a very, very shallow cut. What was happening is this was moving slightly. This is not really ideal. This came with a whole fancy thing that clamps on here, but I think that's even more likely to come loose and in more ways than one. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep going a little deeper. I apologize, the light is terrible here, but you can see what I'm doing. I haven't laid them all yet. I haven't laid them all out yet, but I'm trying to do this as close to a real quarter sawn setup as I can. This is not ideal. This is ideal. You want the grain going across. This will be turned on its side when it's laid on the deck. So I'm trying to get this guy and this guy out of here, and then I'm going to see about doing something similar on the other side. I want to wait until I get these free to see what the dimension really is that I have left, if you know what I mean. Okay, I've pulled 2 sample pieces out. I'm going to rip them down to 3 inches wide, and then I'm going to have to use that surface planer to bring them down to 1.25 inches. Unfortunately, it's just too deep a cut for this saw. It'll never be right. Okay, 3 inches. All right, slightly over thickness on purpose because it's going to get sanded a little. Stuff is all right. The grain isn't perfect. This is kind of a, you can see by the end grain that this isn't quite ideal, but this will be good for some out of the way, less trafficked areas maybe. Like way up at the end. It's going to have to be for a short piece anyway. It's I've barely got 2 feet, a little over 2 feet of usable wood here. Cool, let's do the other one. And there we have it. I can sand these burns out. It's a little proud on purpose, both pieces. And there's going to be a caulking bevel. I saw the router bit that will be appropriate for this today. I should have bought it while I was in the store, but I wasn't sure. But I just plotted it out in order to get a gap of about a little over 3/16 like that, and come down 3/8 of an inch. I need a follow bit. Well, you'll see it later. I'm not doing it by hand. Hell no. And I'm not going to do it on the saw. It just makes more sense to use the router. I might even rig a table for the router. Excuse me, with a fence. But that's cool looking grain. It's pretty heavy stuff, and I can tell now it's not going to want to bend much at all. So yeah. So we may have some issues. I may have to do some shimming or padding. I don't want to use a million shims under the frame, but we can't have voids. And I really can't expect those screws to draw it down. It's, doesn't really want to bend. It may be a little too thick, but 1.25 inches is what I've got to fill. There's no point in doing this if I'm going to put a layer of plywood under it. I really don't want to do that. What I might have to do actually is kind of, I don't know, add something to the top of all the frames. We'll see. I'm going to bring these to the boat in a couple of days, just these two, and just kind of lay them here and there and see what's going on. I got a lot of other stuff to do at home before I continue milling the rest of this. It's not really time for it anyway. It's time for me to go inside and clean up and get something to eat and start editing this episode. Once again, it was good to have you. I hope you are entertained. Are you not entertained? And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, subscribe. Definitely subscribe.